100 Days. Credit to Luke the Notable. I'm basically copying his idea,
people
but
seem to think of it as sacrilegious, which, in the grand scheme of things, isn't a big deal. Usually, I just ignore people like
but go
that.
sub to him. Check out his channel. This is not my idea.
This week, just because it happened in that anime. Yes, Attack on Titan. Probably, no, I take that back. Definitely the most popular anime of the year. And as someone who recently made life-changing decisions involving said anime, see the video linked in the description, I have a personal bone to pick with people who take things this far. So today, before even entertaining the idea that there would ever be any kind of justifiable reason to bully animators who worked on the show, I want to talk about CG in general, and then break down Attack on Titan's use of it and how they actually did a really good damn job with it. Because, ironically enough, this is something I'm actually moderately versed in. But before we start, I do want to specify I am by no means a specialist in CGI and 3D compositing and 2D animation. I probably know more than most, but I am a hobbyist and by no means an expert, nor do I claim to be. I may get some things wrong, but take everything I say with a grain of salt. So without further ado, let's talk about an overly complicated subject. First off, we have to establish something pretty simple, but a lot of people still don't really understand. What is CGI? CGI's direct translation is computer-generated imagery. And fun fact, CGI can technically be 2D. You know, a lot of those cookie-cutter anime that all look the same, most of those are created completely in software, making them all completely CGI anime. But they are, in fact, still two-dimensional. However, for the sake of simplicity, for the rest of this video, when I refer to the term CGI, I am strictly referring to 3D CGI. Because that is what most people refer to when they say CGI or CG. Basically, for this video, CG is just objects that are created in a 3D program with 3 dimensions that are usually composited into 2D spaces when talking about anime, but not always, as you're about to see. Speaking of which, while we are talking about compositing, we should also define that word as well, because I'm going to be saying it a lot in this video. Compositing is the act of layering a bunch of elements on top of one another. The elements can be all 3D, 2D, or mixed. They do need to be combined to form a singular 2D image, or for our sake, 2D scene. Unfortunately, we have yet to master 3D cinema, although I guess it's actually not too far off. Okay, so now we know what CG is and how it's implemented. So, when do we use it? And this is where we enter the opinion zone. A lot of anime purists will tell you that anime should always be 2D, and look, I understand that perspective a bit, but anime is a business, and CG can be an extremely effective tool for saving costs, time, and quality. So let's go over some shows that use CG extremely effectively. The first show I want to talk about that implements CG really well is Jin. Jin is a lower-budget anime that was released on Netflix by Polygon Pictures, which is an anime studio that works exclusively on 3D anime. This is a pretty clever business strategy because they can consistently churn out low-budget anime and make a pretty decent profit. But obviously, if the anime is bad, no one is going to watch it. So what do they do to get people to watch their anime despite the general consensus that CG is bad? Well, they use a few clever tools. Firstly, most of the scenes are composited with very little light. Watching Jin, you will notice that most of the scenes in this anime are dark and poorly lit. This is fine because it matches the story and increases suspense in the show. However, low light also camouflages the CG better. With the bright lights, you can see every inch of the model and notice every little disparity in the character's movement and animation. The dark scene's primary role is to mask a lot of the small mistakes in the CG animation and quality. The second tool, and frankly the most important, is the story. Jin is such a deep and terrifying narrative. It's one of those that suck you in with mystery after mystery. And when you get pulled into a show's narrative, begins to matter less, and Jin banks on this idea. It's frankly why the show has been so successful despite being entirely CG. The character writing, the villains, and the overall narrative of this show is extremely intense. And once you've been watching the show, it's forgetting that it is entirely CG. The second show that uses CG to its benefit is Land of the Lustrous. Once again, Land of the Lustrous is another show that is entirely CG. It's made by Studio Orange, who had some experience in compositing CG into 2D animation, but from what I can tell, this was a fully CG property. Their strategy was a bit different from Jin's, though. First off, the show was cleverly built around the idea of it being a fully CG show. The characters themselves are rigid bodies. They are literally crystals, and as such, awkward body movements don't stand out as much and are easily forgivable. Secondly, the show uses a lot of interesting imagery when working with characters that don't have rigid bodies, like the angels. They are mosaic and far from humanoid, so their awkward movements aren't accidents. They are very intentionally meant to look off-putting and unnatural. And finally, the one human character of the show is often shown sitting or moving very little, as to try and keep him looking the most humanoid of all. This show was written around the idea of being CG, and frankly, in my opinion, is probably the most successful fully CG anime to come out thanks to this. So I just looked it up. It was in fact a manga beforehand, but it is a perfect manga for CG adaptation. That's my little 2 cents there, my bad. The final and most promising show that incorporates CG is obviously Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer is a primarily 2D anime that composites CG into its scenes. And look, the CG in Demon Slayer is something else. Studio Ufotable is clearly leagues above everyone else when it comes to cleanly compositing CG inside of 2D animation. A lot of scenes you can't even pout. If every studio could do this, I'm sure they would, but call it a long shot. Something tells me the techniques they implement are probably a trade secret exclusive to Studio Ufotable. But there are some techniques we can take note of here. First off, it's clear that Studio Ufotable sticks strictly to animating CG in heavy movement scenes. In other words, using CG Tanjiro in fight scenes almost exclusively. This is an effective strategy because obviously the more movement, the more difficult and time-consuming it is to draw. Whereas with CG, it's only a little more work. Secondly, they also use large movement in these scenes. I actually don't know if the idea is to help disguise the CG or not. It's just a pattern I've picked up from Studio Ufotable that may have something to do with how they integrate the CG. By the way, if you have any theories, let me know in the comments because I've literally been sitting here for half an hour just trying to break this technique down and explain its purpose. But yeah, and I know I already mentioned this earlier, but typically the CG fights are also in low light settings. Now, not anywhere near as dark as a Jin, but maybe just enough to hide any small imperfections. So let's finally move on and talk about how Attack on Titan used CG in the Warhammer fight, and how it took points from all 3 of these shows. So first and most obvious is the plot. Look, I know, crazy rare opinion here, but the plot for Attack on Titan is incredible and really engaging. I don't think many people disagree with me on that one. But yeah, the show has good characters and a strong enough story to carry scenes where the art, and in this case, the CG, should pose less of a distraction since most of us are already heavily invested in the show. Anyway, that was the most obvious one. The second pointer Attack on Titan took from a Jin is low light scenes. Most of the CG that happens in this episode doesn't involve much light. The episode takes place almost entirely at night, therefore helping mask any weaknesses that there may be in the character models or animations. Another thing is that these Titans are unnatural creatures that are supposed to look off-putting and, hell, even scary. So, similar to Land of the Lustrous, it actually works in favor of CG. While we're talking about that, these are also heavy action scenes with lots of movement in them, similar to scenes that Studio Ufotable would also opt for CG. And finally, the compositing of CG into the 2D animation is very damn good.
Also, just to let you guys
Sure,
know,
some
this is
scenes you
not
can notice it,
hardcore.
but just because you can notice the CG
I'm not really good
doesn't
at it.
automatically mean bad.
So if I die,
Bad
then
CG
that's
is
fine
something
by
that
me.
ruins a moment for you, completely taking you out of the show. If you're really getting to the point where you can't enjoy the Warhammer fights because you can mildly tell that sometimes they use CG to animate the fights, then maybe you should stick to non-action anime, because I got some bad news for you. There will definitely be a lot more CG in the future in this show, because as a manga reader myself, there are other scenes that would work out perfectly with CG compositing. And frankly, a lot of anime need and will be following suit. 2D animation for fight scenes is expensive, and 3D animation is getting ever closer to being indistinguishable from 2D animation. So, please, UFO table, share your trade secrets with everyone already. But no, this is a case of a studio making the right call to properly use CG in their anime and make this fight as awesome as it was. So to see people calling it out as bad just makes me angry, because it's not, and they clearly don't see it for what it is. Now, look, before we wrap this video up, I'm not saying all CG is good. I think using it in scenes that fill in the background like ReZero does sometimes is too much. Like, you could just do a simple fill plate with a repeating animation and get a much better and less distracting result. I mean, Astric War's walking mech humans still haunt my dreams to this day. Oh god, and don't even get me started on the CG bear in Golden Kamui. It's like the perfect example of how not to do CG. It's well lit, way too close up, poor compositing, and it all happens at the beginning of the anime way before the story even really starts. But none of these examples I listed are worthy of bullying animators, which, at the end of the day, is where I draw the line. I know this sounds obvious, but
There's a village back there. Oh, that's good. Alright, so one day it's been finished.
We get. You want happy, productive employees.
That's why we've made our office pet friendly. Maybe a little too pet friendly.
You know, CDW can design a mobility solution with light, powerful devices from Lenovo to make people more productive.
Everyone knows the angels of the Dragon Ball universe are intimidatingly powerful, associated with gods of destruction, and seemingly couldn't care less about entire universes being wiped out in the blink of an eye. No matter what happens in fanfiction, an angel can never fall for a god of destruction, and believe it or not, all the angels are actually related to one another. Dating prospects for these guys are pretty limited, but somehow sleep over it. Today we're going to be taking a look at these fascinating deities and talking about some strange rules they all seemingly have to follow. Love. In the Dragon Ball universe, the gods of destruction are characters who should not be underestimated. They have massive amounts of power and can tear apart worlds in the blink of an eye. But being a god of destruction is a tough job, and you can't clown around. Well, unless you're Belmont, god of destruction for Series 11, who literally looks like a clown. Despite having a penchant for destruction and looking like a very scary clown, Belmont is a perfectly chill guy most of the time. He also has an angel assistant named Margarita, and the two make a In fact, it's hard not to notice that. Between Belmont's clown paint and Margarita's pigtails, the two of them look like a regular Joker and Harley Quinn pair. In fact, this was even taken to the extreme in the manga, where the two were frequently depicted as more than just co-workers. Instead, Belmont and Margarita seem to be in love with one another. At least until Akira Toriyama put a stop to it. He corrected his successor, Toyotaro, and claimed that there was no way an angel would ever fall in love with a god of destruction. Since the angels ultimately take orders from Zeno, they don't have dispensation for office romances. We're sure there's plenty of fanfiction out there that disagrees, but we have to defer to Toriyama on this one. Revived. As you've probably noticed by now, angels are some of the most powerful beings in the cosmology of Dragon Ball. Not only do they assist the gods of destruction and keep them in check, but they're also responsible for training them. Whis is even able to warp so quickly he can affect the flow of time. In addition to having powers of divination and incredible healing, the angels can also resurrect characters who've fallen in battle. Whis was able to resurrect Frieza without batting an eye. But there are some limitations to the powers of the angels, although, quite frankly, they're few and far between. While Whis made bringing Frieza back look easy, he can't revive someone who has been killed by a demon. In the Dragon Ball Super manga, Jiren is trying to resurrect his former master. Jiren's on a quest to receive the Super Dragon Balls because it's the only way to bring him back to life since he was killed by a demon. Even the power of an angel wouldn't be enough to revive him under such circumstances. Gods of Destruction. We mentioned that angels are stronger than the gods of destruction they accompany, because it's their responsibility to train them and make them strong. But it's also out of necessity, since they are occasionally called upon to keep them in line. The angels and gods of destruction have a kind of strange relationship, in which the angels serve the gods of destruction, but also keep them in check when the situation calls for it. Like the time Beerus from Universe 7 and Champa from Universe 6 started to get into it, forcing their respective angels, Whis and Vados, to intervene. As you've probably guessed from their titles, the gods of destruction, well, they destroy things. People, places, planets, you get the picture. But there have to be limits, and the angels have to enforce them. We've seen Whis easily put a stop to Beerus when he nearly went on a wasabi-fueled rampage in Dragon Ball Super. Frankly, Beerus has caused more than his fair share of destruction over the years, so it's good that Whis is around to keep him in check. Although apparently no force in the universe can stop him from napping.
Let's go, my friends.
There are many ways to meet your end in the Dragon Ball universe. In fact, there are way too many to list, but as you can probably imagine, it's not easy to take down an angel. In fact, we've seen them survive the destruction of their entire universes. During the Tournament of Power, we watched them destroy the losing universes in the blink of an eye, yet their angels were unharmed. When Zeno wiped out Universe 9, its angel, Mojito, even smiled when it happened. Things like this have served to convince some fans that there's something up with the angels, who may not be as impartial and benevolent as they appear. While we don't know for sure that they're up to no good, it's definitely an interesting theory at the very least. Or it could just mean Mojito isn't a sentimental type. Either way, it's clear the angels are nearly indestructible, and it's interesting to note that their existence doesn't rely on the existence of their associated universe. It's no wonder fans wonder if the angels are all that attached to the universes they call home. Sleep. Despite their vast powers, the angels can act pretty human from time to time. They even love indulging in food to quite an extreme extent. But although they love to eat, it turns out the angels don't need to sleep at all. It makes sense that these ultra-powerful beings probably function quite differently than we do. But we've seen some other powerful beings in the Dragon Ball universe sleep, the most notable of whom is probably Beerus, the god of destruction for Universe 7. Even though he's feared by many majorly powerful characters, including the Supreme Kais, Frieza, and Shenron, he still can't resist a good cat nap from time to time. He pretty much causes massive amounts of destruction while awake and then slips into a peaceful slumber, just like a real cat. Perhaps his most notable nap happened during the All-Universe Hide-and-Seek tournament, where he derailed the event by sleeping for 50 years. But the angels don't have to experience sleeping, and really it seems to make sense considering how powerful they are. In fact, it's even stranger that literal gods need to get their shut-eye, and can easily spend decades slumbering. Halos. We're not gonna lie, even for the most ardent Dragon Ball fan, the cosmology of the universe can be kinda confusing. Of course, we have the angels with a capital A, who are each associated with the god of destruction and have amazing magical powers. But then there are the angels with a lowercase a, who are just deceased people who have managed to retain their bodies in the other world. During the Fortune Teller Baba scene in Dragon Ball, we saw dear old Grandpa Gohan return to the land of the living, supporting a halo hovering over his head. In fact, the presence of a halo is used to denote the existence of angels with a lowercase a in various series. In the 4Kids dub of Dragon Ball Kai, the halos are blurred to look like glowing orbs instead for some reason. Who are we to question the wisdom of 4Kids? But the uppercase angels have halos as well. They just look quite different from the ones we're used to seeing. Their halos are blue instead of gold, and in most cases, they're located around the angels' necks. The exception to this rule is the Grand Minister, whose halo floats behind his head. There's another form of angel in the Dragon Ball universe referred to as the Angels of Hell, and these ones don't seem to have halos. Instead, they appear as cute, cuddly, cheerful creatures, who are absolute torture to characters like Frieza. Seriously, this version of the underworld looks kind of fun, but apparently Frieza isn't a fan. names. Everyone knows that characters in the Dragon Ball universe tend to have theme names like how Saiyans are named after vegetables. For some reason, the angels are all named after alcoholic beverages, some of which are more obvious than others. The angel for Universe 1 is Awamo, who's named after Awamori, a distilled rice beverage from Okinawa. Universe 2 has Sour, who's named after the sour variety of mixed drinks, and Universe 3 has Campari, who's named after Campari, an Italian liqueur. Then we have the Universe 4 angel Cognac, named after a type of brandy from Cognac, France. The angel from Universe 5 is Cocktail, whose name is a reference to the word cocktail. God of Destruction Champa from Universe 6 is accompanied by Vados, whose name is based on Calvados, a brandy from Normandy. Next we have Whis, the angel of Universe 7, whose name has a slightly funny origin story, or maybe we should say slightly punny. The Universe 7 God of Destruction Beerus was named by screenwriter Yusuke Watanabe, and his Japanese name is Birisu, a pun on the word virus. But Akira Toriyama thought he was named after beer, so he named his assistant Whis after whiskey. Then we have Universe 8 with Korn, who, contrary to popular belief, isn't named after the new metal band, but rather a type of spirit called corn or cornbread. We also have Mojito from Universe 9, named after, well, mojitos, and Universe 10's Kusu, named after an aged Awamori. You could probably figure out Universe 11's Margarita and Universe's 12's Martino. Emotion. We know Akira Toriyama thinks it's impossible for an angel to fall for a god of destruction, and we'll take his word for that. But it does seem like, overall, the angels display a surprising lack of emotion for the most part.
Day 2 has been finished.
Out of existence, and none of the angels really seem to care. Of course, it makes sense, considering how ancient and powerful they are, but still, there's something unsettling about their lack of reactions during major moments. There are a couple of exceptions to this rule, though. Campari has been shown to care about other beings, and they care about him as well. When Universe 3 is being erased, Newell even leaves his robot suit in order to thank Campari for all of his help. Kusu is the angel from Universe 10, and she actually looked sad to see her universe get erased. We know that may not sound like much, but when you consider her fellow angel Mojito actually smiled when his universe was erased, you can see why it's kind of a big deal. Elimination. Earlier, we talked about the fact that angels survive, even when Zeno erases their universes from existence. In fact, while most angels seem pretty invulnerable to harm, they do have a completely reasonable fear of Zeno. In fact, pretty much everyone except for Goku is smart enough to know to tread lightly around the Omni King. Zeno seems to be the one enemy the angels could never defeat, and some fans believe they may be hoping to change that. But that's fan theory for another video. However, there's also future Zeno to worry about, and we've seen him wipe out everything in the future, including the angels. The only beings to survive from his timeline were himself, Future Trunks, and Future Mai. Rank. Although the angels have a lot in common with one another, there's definitely one who stands out as being at a higher rank. While most angels accompany gods of destruction, the Grand Minister serves Zeno himself, and has done so for thousands of years. Unlike the other angels, the Grand Minister doesn't rely on a staff to use his incredible powers, but apparently he's been doing more than just serving Zeno for all of this time, considering he's had time to father all of the other angels. That's right, the angels are all related to one another, and their father is none other than the Grand Minister himself. Kusu is the oldest, despite looking more childlike than her siblings. We're not sure what's stranger, the fact that the Grand Minister has so many kids, or the fact that they're all named after alcoholic beverages. Apparently there isn't any kind of angel child protection agency in the Dragon Ball universe. What are your thoughts about the angels in the Dragon Ball universe? Do you think they're definitely up to something? Or
Someday I'll ask you a question that will change me forever. Start your someday today. With 20 to 40% off all bridal.
Day 3.
Dragon
I'm
Ball is known for a lot of
starting
screaming,
to.
luscious golden locks of hair, epic drawn-out fights lasting multiple episodes, and incredible animation. All this was kept in check for Dragon Ball Super and then some with the introduction of the Gods of Destruction. As you can guess, these guys like to destroy. In fact, it's actually their job. And they're also gods, so yeah, you don't want to mess with them. Is there anyone who can actually stop them? Only Zeno for starters, but he can erase entire universes, so he kind of beats everyone. Nevertheless, there are a few rules these Gods of Destruction follow, so let's take a moment to talk about them.
Donkey donkey.
Destroy. As the title suggests,
simple as it sounds, this is something all destroyers are made to do. While the Kais and Supreme Kais are beings of creation and growth, the destroyers are beings that destroy planets and galaxies alike. It's a yin and yang kind of relationship, and some might even say it's an evil thing to do, but hey, somebody's got to do it. Think about the life cycle we're taught in biology class. The producers create the resources for consumers. The decomposers break down dead or dying material that will one day be fuel for the producers. It's the cycle of life, baby. The same can be said for the destroyers and Kai. If the gods of destruction never existed, there would soon be an overabundance of planets and galaxies in one universe, and nothing to really put the universe in check. A wise man once said, "It's a dirty job, but someone has to do it." And the saying rings true here. But destroying planets and the like isn't so much a dirty job, as it is a thankless and some might say evil job. While destroyers rarely do what they do out of spite, it's hard to argue when entire galaxies are being wiped out. Choose and train replacements. So unlike Xeno or the Supreme Kais, destroyers are made. They aren't immortal and can even be killed in battle. So as is tradition, there needs to be a replacement in the event that happens, or rather when that happens.
Artemis is trying to protect mankind from another world.
Disney Plus invite that happens. This would also explain why the destroyers are different races as opposed to a single race like the Kais. As such, a god of destruction needs to be chosen and trained by the angels, the beings that mentor destroyers. These trainees are referred to as agents of destruction and serve under the god of destruction until they're needed to take their place. Vegeta and Goku train under Beerus and Whis in order to become stronger. But for Vegeta, he has agreed to the training in return for being made a god of destruction. For Universe 11, the Pride Troopers all serve under Belmont and are all agents of destruction, but in their universe, they only destroy evil, which is rare even among destroyers, and they're largely immoral when it comes to destroying planets. For whatever reason they choose to take on this position, agents of destruction serve their gods of destruction in order to replace them. The universe needs the balance, and they don't have the luxury of being born into their position. Power. Well, this one is a no-brainer. In order to be a god of destruction, you have to have a lot of power. Enough power to destroy a planet like it was nothing, and a galaxy as if it were a fly getting underway. As stated before, gods of destruction are ultra-powerful. They're the most powerful beings in their respective universe.
I'm
With only very
gonna
few
make
mortals
my
who can even
money
match them.
share.
In the Battle of the Gods, it took Goku going Super Saiyan God in order to keep pace with Beerus, and even then, he was no match for the big bad purple cat. While Champa and Beerus are brothers and both ridiculously powerful, Beerus has proven to be the strongest of the two. More to the point, it has even been stated that not all destroyers are equal in power. Quintella has stated that he once beat Beerus in arm wrestling, which in and itself is hilarious, seeing a little yellow mouse beat a purple cat. Slight differences in power aside, even the weakest god of destruction is more than 10 times as powerful as any mortal, with a few exceptions, of course. For example, Ultra Instinct Goku has the potential to match Beerus. Such immense power? Yeah, it's necessary for the job. Line 1 on their resume. Balance the Kais. As stated before, the gods of destruction are the yang to the Supreme Kai's yin. They create and make life, and destroyers take it. The cycle continues. However, it's a little more involved than that. See, if all the Kais of a universe were to die, the gods of destruction would die too. Though this isn't common knowledge, the Kais and the gods of destruction are the very few beings who know this, and as such, are wise enough not to fight each other. However, if it came to blows, the gods of destruction would surely win. This relationship keeps the balance of the universe in check, and to an extent, keeps the cycle going without much of a problem. While they understand this, it hasn't stopped all hostilities between the two divine beings. A great example is when Beerus trapped Old Kai into the Z-Sword. Outside of this, Beerus continued to belittle and mock the Kais of his universe. The other destroyers have varied relationships with their Kais. Hey, as long as he doesn't fight or kill them outright, he's fine, right? There's nothing in the laws of the universe that says he has to be nice to them. Technically, okay, but morally gray. All the power one of these gods of destruction has, there are some things they can't do. Well, technically they can, but it'd be a very, very bad idea. As a universal law, the gods of destruction can't fight each other in combat, or it'll destroy both universes they rule over. This is seen time and again with Beerus and Champa, two brothers who are destroyers. Like all brothers in the history of the world, they can't stand to be around each other and get on each other's nerves. Of course, they can't directly fight each other or destroy both universes, so they have to settle disputes in other ways. This is what brings about the Universe 6 tournament, where the two pick the best fighters in their universe to fight on their behalf. The two butt heads again later on, but instead of a whole tournament arc, they'd play a game of baseball. That squabble lasted a whole episode. However, gods of destruction choose to settle their differences as fine, as long as it doesn't involve direct combat. Destroyers might be pretty immoral when it comes to destruction. After all, it's their job. but destroying an entire universe is a bit of an overstep. Mentor. It takes a lot to be a destroyer. You need to blow up planets at the snap of your fingers and be able to do it hundreds, if not thousands of times a day. You don't get that kind of training on your own. What you need in order to attain that kind of power is an angel.
Don't use Archer. Archer again. No equipment.
Yes, an angel is the way to big galaxy-ending gains and swole planet-destroying physique. Even the great and powerful Beerus would be nothing but a lazy kitty had it not been for the angel Whis. The same could be said for Champa and his angel Vados, who coincidentally is Whis' sister. In the Dragon Ball Super lore, it's the angels who mentor destroyers and are, in fact, more powerful than them. The only being above the angels are Lord Zeno himself. Because of their high status, angels are generally more remorseless and immoral than the destroyers they train, oftentimes treating destroyers as if they were children. Vados is seen always pointing out that Champa needs to keep up with his diet. Destroyers, angels can also train the agents of destruction, the subservient fighters that will one day become gods of destruction themselves.
Yes.
The power of destruction. What is a god of destruction without said power of destruction? Well, nothing really. The power of destruction is the end-all, be-all of powers. It utterly and completely erases whatever it touches, even incorporeal beings such as ghosts and spirits. Destroyers regularly use this power when destroying planets, or will often use it on a criminal Kai. This power can be converted into energy as well, much like Ki, and is called energy of destruction. This force can be used both as an attack and for defense. Beerus demonstrates this power by turning an egg into dust simply by touching it. With this energy, they can destroy or erase anything, just like regular power, and visually, a dark purple aura will surround a destroyer. They can then manifest the aura back into a sphere to use as an attack and vice versa. What's unique about this power is that it can be bestowed to mortals by destroyers. A few non-destroyer characters have handled this energy, such as Frieza and Goku. It doesn't matter who's wielding this awesome power, it means instant and assured death for whoever and whatever it touches. Power levels mean nothing if one of those nasty spheres touches you. Anger. One thing about divine beings is that they tend to be pretty stuck up. The angels being largely detached from the mortal world as a whole, and not caring about anything, not even the destroyers they mentor. The Kais are a bit more emotional and animated, but they do have a bit of an aloof factor to them, especially the older Kai. However, the gods of destruction seem to be more inclined to rage, strong emotions, and in fact, act like actual people more than other divine beings. As such, gods of destruction can get angry, very angry indeed.
Okay,
We've seen this a few times with Beerus. He's perhaps as fickle as an actual cat, and will fly off the handle for next to no reason. He even destroyed planets over trivial matters, like not liking the food they made for him. Destroyers even go to a rage mode similar to Saiyans, when their power and fury escalate dramatically, which makes sense since gods of destruction manifest their own power in raw destructive energy, mixed with their naturally high combat skill. It's no wonder these destroyers are prone to fits of rage. They're a calamity, a force of nature condensed into a single entity. You best get out their way. Mind your own business. While we discussed how gods of destruction can get angry when they don't get their way, the truth of the matter is that they can be just as aloof and uncaring at the other divine beings. By and large, gods of destruction will stay out of the mortal affairs unless it directly benefits them. It has been revealed that Beerus knew about Frieza's conquest of the universe and did nothing to stop him, while the purple and white madman conquered and killed across the galaxy. Even if a god of destruction were to befriend a mortal like Beerus does, they're under no obligation to assist them, and will refrain from doing so out of principle. This is also to their benefit, since the destroyer's main job is to destroy to cultivate growth in the universe. But he has allowed Whis to step in and assist. The prime example is when Whis stops Frieza from destroying the Earth. This was to make Goku learn from his mistakes. There are ways Beerus helps indirectly, mostly by providing information. Beerus has shared info with Bulma and the other Z fighters throughout Dragon Ball Super. Of course, this is to Goku's benefit too. If Beerus were to stop every crisis on Earth, Goku, he'd be out of a job. Earned divinity. Beings like the Kais, the angels, and even Lord Zeno are a race of divine beings that reign above all others and control the multiverse. Destroyers play an integral role and help cultivate growth in the universe by destroying. It's a job very few can do, and even fewer get to do it for very long. As such, destroyers aren't immortal. While they can live long lives, they will eventually need to be replaced. As we have touched upon, destroyers and angels will seek out powerful individuals to train and mentor, so that they one day be destroyers themselves. Vegeta has to be trained by Whis in order to become stronger and one day surpass Goku, as is his mission in life. Whis agrees on the condition that Vegeta becomes a god of destruction himself one day. It's through this process that we come to the conclusion that destroyers are made rather than born. It also explains why all the gods of destruction are different races, save for Beerus and Champa, who are twin brothers. Strong fighters need to prove themselves to the powers that be in order to attain the massive power necessary to be called a god of destruction. So as always, dress for the job you want, folks. So these are the rules gods of destruction follow in Dragon Ball. Do you think we left anything out? What rules would you include? We'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments down below. Also be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell for more CDR content. Thanks for watching.
Alright, finish 2 days. Let me actually refuel on my food. Maybe that's a decent amount of bread.
Saiyans are an interesting and important part of the world of Dragon Ball. On top of being immensely powerful, Saiyans are rather particular, with most if not all Saiyans following specific patterns in their biology, behavior, and everything in between. This is to say that there are some things that pretty much every Saiyan does, be it by choice, coincidence, or otherwise. Let's take a look at all the things that Saiyans have in common, shall we? Saiyans have a sort of weird aging process. Even before we knew he was an alien, Goku was shown to stay the same size for over 4 years, finally having the appearance of a teenager when he reached his 20s. While we doubt this was planned ahead of time, it was eventually revealed that Goku as a Saiyan ages slower, a biological trait that allows Saiyans to remain at their peak physical prowess for a longer period of time. This means all Saiyans age slowly, and we don't just mean their aging slows down when they reach adulthood. They also take a long time to grow from children to teenagers to adults. The fact that can be seen Goku appearing to only be in his late 20s or early 30s despite being almost 50, as well as Goten and Trunks still looking like kids. Like we said, this is something that all Saiyans have in common, since they evolved to be powerful warriors, and aging slower would allow them to fight longer. The fact that Vegeta revealed in the epilogue of DBZ. It might not exactly be immortality, but it's close, and we definitely trade being a late bloomer for a few extra decades of looking and feeling so young. Notorious for their insane appetites. This is another one that started as a weird element to the original Dragon Ball series, so we can't say it was planned all along, but still, it's well known that all Saiyans love to eat. It makes sense for any powerful warrior to require a ton of calories, but Saiyans are particularly ravenous. Their massive power, strength, and energy output requiring them to put restaurants out of business with how much they can put away in a single sitting. Case in point, during the 25th World Martial Arts Tournament, Goku, Vegeta, and Gohan all stuffed themselves silly before they even fought in a match. Goten and Trunks eating just as much in the junior division. An even better example of a Saiyan appetite came in Dragon Ball Super, when Chi-Chi and Piccolo were seen carrying a massive haul of food in preparation for both her sons and her husband being home for dinner. Additionally, there's the fact that Goku was once shown shopping for horse meat, implying that he and Goten eat so much that Chi-Chi opts to go for the cheap stuff, but that's just our theory. Regardless, there's no denying how much a Saiyan can pack away.
Get away from me, boy.
Saiyans were even introduced into the series. Take Goku's tail. There was never any real reason stated as to why Goku had a tail, but we know it was the reason why he turned into a giant ape monster during the full moon. We also know that Goku's tail was incredibly sensitive, nearly paralyzing him in pain whenever it was grabbed. We eventually learned that this is a weakness that all Saiyans have, though they can train themselves to get over it. However, both because of the sensitivity of their tails and the fact that it's said to be the source of their power, containing the glands needed to transform into a great ape, Saiyan warriors are sure to keep their tails safe and out of harm's way, doing so by wrapping it around their waist like a belt. One of the coolest design choices in the entire franchise. Form and function. Strangely enough, Gohan was never depicted having his tail grabbed, so we don't know if half-breeds have the same weakness as full-blooded Saiyans. Though the fact that Gohan had so much potential because he was half-human might suggest it wasn't as sensitive. While Saiyans are born with a naturally sensitive tail, it's not something that can hinder their power their entire lives. In fact, most Saiyan warriors learn very early how to overcome the overwhelming pain that's caused by having their tail grabbed. By training hard and enduring pain, an experienced Saiyan warrior can overcome the limits that their tail can cause them. This isn't the only weakness that all Saiyans have the potential to overcome. They also have the ability to control their great ape forms. See, most Saiyans go completely berserk whenever they look at the full moon and turn into a great ape. The form is so powerful and so primal that it causes a Saiyan to lose all sense of themselves, as evidenced by all of Goku and Gohan's transformations. However, when Vegeta broke out his great ape form, something was different. He was still himself, and he could still speak despite being in a form that normally drives a Saiyan berserk. This is because, like with their tail weakness, a Saiyan is able to gain control over their great ape form, given time and proper training. But a berserker great ape is still much more dangerous than a trained one. The more we think about it, Akira Toriyama did a pretty awesome job connecting all of Goku's powers and attributes to his Saiyan heritage. This video is full of examples, but one particularly interesting one is the fact that Goku got stronger with every battle. A notion that one could interpret as that which doesn't kill him only makes him stronger. This was explored further during the Saiyan and Frieza sagas of Dragon Ball Z, since Vegeta explained that when a Saiyan is on the brink of death following a battle, as long as they survive, they'll gain the strength needed to overcome the power of the opponent that put them in the near-death state to begin with. It's a pretty nifty power that can be seen throughout the entire series, like in the Frieza saga when Goku gains a massive power-up after almost dying and then recovering in the healing chamber. Suffice it to say, a Saiyan's greatest strength is their ability to overcome that which once brought them close to death. And thanks to Senzu Beans, Goku and Vegeta have had quite a few of those kinds of power-ups all throughout the franchise. Which is sort of cheating when you really think about it.
How much coal is this?
Goku is something of an odd duck amongst Saiyans. Instead of being violent, bloodthirsty, and completely lacking in empathy, Goku is kind-hearted, willing to stand up for others, and throughout many points in the franchise, downright heroic. Part of this has to do with the fact that his adoptive grandfather Gohan raised him to be a gentle-hearted martial artist. But the main reason that Goku is so unlike other Saiyans is, well, because he fell on his head as a baby. Yeah, that's right. The moral alignment of Dragon Ball's greatest hero is the result of an old man dropping a baby he once found in the woods. Were it not for that head injury, Goku would have retained his aggressive, mean-spirited personality. A personality that all Saiyans seems to naturally have. This is a result of both their battle-thirsty nature, naturally being prone to aggressive behavior, and the harsh and toxic aspects of their survival-of-the-fittest-based society, which is probably the biggest factor in this behavior. Although Vegeta eventually learned to be kinder and more heroic, he's still rough around the edges, and one of the best examples of how Saiyans are prone to be a bit violent and aggressive. Part of the reason that Saiyan culture revolved around stamping down the weak and using power as a means of determining who are the greatest among them is that Saiyans just love to fight. While this part of their physiology isn't malicious by nature, it ended up contributing to their society's violent and aggressive hierarchy. Although Goku would go on to be an example of how a Saiyan can love battle but not be a total jerk about it. Suffice it to say, Saiyans as a species that evolved to fight have an innate love for combat. Something that can be seen in both Goku and Vegeta, but not in the half-Saiyans. Again, it's not necessarily that Saiyans are mean and just like starting fights. They just enjoy the sport of fighting. Something that can be seen whenever Goku challenges a strong opponent to a fight just because they're strong, and he wants to see if he can hold his own. That's the entire premise of Battle of Gods. Goku is the best example of Saiyans loving battle, since he's very vocal about wanting to fight strong opponents, as evidenced by the fact that he's the reason for the Tournament of Power taking place. Saiyan culture favored strength, and because of this, there was little room for love when it came to reproduction. It was just about creating a powerful offspring to add to the Saiyan army. In fact, Saiyan men and women are pretty much wired to be attracted to strong-willed mates. The fact that Vegeta revealed when he and Goku shared a moment is that they bonded over the sheer love of their relationships, feisty and fiery personalities. Following this reveal, Piccolo's jaw dropped. Everything he knew about Chi-Chi and Bulma finally making sense. Apparently, Goku likes getting yelled at by her. That can't be healthy for their relationship. Regardless, it's clear that Saiyans are attracted to, shall we say, energetic mates. Ones with personalities that reflect a strong will, who will make for a stronger next generation. Although Chi-Chi and Bulma might not be physically strong or powerful, they're easily the strongest willed women in the entire franchise. and they don't put up with no nonsense from their husbands. At least most of the time, since Goku tends to get away with a whole lot of terrible things. Gohan and Goten, on the other hand, their mother has got those two wrapped around her finger, since she can be very persuasive when she's mad. This next entry is a weird one, since it's less of an in-story piece of lore and more of a strange pattern that we've noticed throughout the franchise. What exactly are we referring to? Well, if you look at every Saiyan that's ever been featured in a canon entry of the franchise, including Half Saiyans, you'll find that one of two things has happened to them. They've either lost their tail or they're currently or permanently dead. Think about it. Who are all the Saiyans with tails? Everyone on planet Vegeta, plus Raditz, Nappa, and Paragus, all of whom are currently dead. Now look at all the Saiyans who are currently alive. Goku, Vegeta, Broly, Gohan, Trunks, Goten, and Bulma. All of whom are alive and tailless. Heck, you could even throw Pan in there since she's a quarter Saiyan and also does not have a tail. It's a strange pattern that might blow a few people's minds. It almost seems like tails are a death sentence, though it's probably just an interesting coincidence. Wait, maybe it's not a coincidence. Maybe there's more to this than we know. Maybe we stumbled onto a gigantic conspiracy. Break out the red string and corkboard. We have to dig deeper. Dragon Ball has weird naming conventions. Most characters tend to be named after food, with all Saiyans being named after vegetables. While we doubt there's a Dragon Ball fan alive who doesn't know this fact, it's still a pretty unique naming scheme. Especially when you learn that the Japanese version of a Saiyan is a Saiyajin, which is a pun that combines Yajin with wild man, and an anagram of Yasai, which means vegetable. This means Saiyan roughly translates to vegetable wild man. A rather silly name that Akira Toriyama played with further by giving every Saiyan a name that was based on vegetables. Some examples of Goku's name, Kakarot, which is a play on the word carrot. Raditz, which is a play on radish, and Broly, which is a play on broccoli. Every single Saiyan follows this naming convention, save for the half Saiyans who were born on Earth and have Earth names. The royal family, since they're named after vegetables as a whole, rather than specific ones, with Tarble being a play on his brother's name. As combined, they make vegetable. Vegetarble. Get it? This naming scheme can result in some pretty awesome names, like Bardock, but it's also made some stankers, like Caulifla and Cabba. There are two biological elements that all Saiyans have in regards to their hair. The first of which is that they all appear to have dark hair. While some non-canon depictions of the Saiyans have shown some blonde or red-headed members of the Saiyan race, all canon versions of the Saiyans have brown or black hair, with almost every single one of them having a spiky hairstyle. You know, we've always thought the black hair color was a bit weird, considering that Saiyans' tails have brown fur, and when a Saiyan turns into a grade 8, they have all brown fur. This makes us sort of curious what color a Saiyan's body hair would be, if they were ever depicted with any, that is. Additionally, Saiyans also share eye color in common, since they all appear to have black eyes, or rather, eyes so dark in color that they appear all black. This has been the case with every single Saiyan we've seen in Dragon Ball media, including all the Saiyans featured in Dragon Ball Super Broly. Though not every half Saiyan has
not right now.
It's clear that Saiyans have pretty
Not right now.
since Gohan, Goten, and even Pan all have dark hair and dark eyes. We've covered Saiyan hair color. Now let's talk a bit more about hairstyle and how it stays the same throughout their entire life. Throughout all of Dragon Ball, we never once saw Goku get a haircut. This could easily be chalked up to cartoon logic in the sense that there's no reason to show him getting a haircut. However, the series has made it a point to show other characters showing off all kinds of dudes. So it is kind of strange that Goku never showed up with new locks at any point in time. Or at the very least, show up with longer hair after a time skip. We eventually learned there was a reason for this after Vegeta and Trunks emerged from the hyperbolic time chamber. Trunks was shown with much longer hair, while his father had his usual spiky do. Vegeta revealed that full-blooded Saiyans have the same hairstyle their entire life, their hair never growing any longer. However, as evidenced by Nappa, they can still go bald. This is also probably why it took Goku and Vegeta so long to grow beards in the hyperbolic time chamber, though that could also be a result of their slow aging process. This is another strange pattern we've noticed ever since Super Saiyans were first introduced in the series. Every Saiyan who's a ascended to the Super Saiyan form has had an easier time doing it than the previous one. It sounds weird, but take a look at the history of Super Saiyans. First, Goku achieved the form as an adult. Fast forward a bit and future Trunks showed up, easily turning into a Super Saiyan as a teenager. Vegeta followed soon after, only knowing of the form's existence for a short time. Next was Gohan, who became a Super Saiyan before he was a teenager, and unlocking Super Saiyan 2 soon after. Later, in the Buu Saga, we learned that Goten and Trunks could also easily become Super Saiyans at ages 7 and 8. Later in Dragon Ball Super, we were introduced to the universe 6 Saiyan Kappa, who easily learned how to become a Super Saiyan in the middle of his fight with Vegeta. Later, teaching the transformation to Caulifla and Kale, who both learned it in mere minutes. Finally, Broly was able to easily turn into a Super Saiyan following his father's death, showing that being a Super Saiyan just isn't all that special anymore. Prior to Goku, that nearly every Saiyan served the cause of invading and conquering planets. This was the job of the Saiyan army even before under the control of Frieza's army, since the Saiyans' main export was wiping out alien life and freeing up the planets for selling to the highest resided on before their demise, as they were originally from planet Sadala, a play on the word salad. Since, as we learned earlier, all Saiyans are named after vegetables. The Saiyans' planet-conquering ways were eventually led Frieza to destroy planet Vegeta, but up until its destruction, the Saiyans were planet conquerors by any other name. Well, not every single Saiyan played an active role in invading planets, since those with low battle power were often forced to work as laborers or food workers, like Goku's mother, Gine. But they were still helping with and participating in a planet-conquering based economy. Lastly, and certainly not leastly, we have a fact that's both a pattern in the series and an actual part of Saiyan biology, according to a recent piece of lore released by Akira Toriyama himself. Of course, we're talking about the fact that the more kind-hearted a Saiyan is, the stronger they'll become. We saw this not only in the fact that Goku ascended past Vegeta's power level rather quickly, achieving the Super Saiyan form because of the pain he felt when he lost his friend, but also in the fact that as Vegeta began to become a better person, he managed to get stronger, both because he had a family to fight for and because he wants to redeem his past. The idea of a Saiyan getting stronger with kindness was confirmed by Akira Toriyama, who introduced the concept of S-cells. Toriyama stated that S-cells are the cells needed for a Super Saiyan transformation, and when a Saiyan is more gentle, heroic, and kind-hearted, they're more likely to produce these cells. This is why Goku was the first Saiyan in 100 years to become a Super Saiyan, and why it's easier for half-human Saiyans to go Super Saiyan. So, there you have it. Those are just some of the things that all Saiyans do. Did we miss anything? Were some of these a stretch or outright wrong? Let us know what you think down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to CBR for more Dragon Ball videos. Thanks for watching.
Oh, is it day or 4? I have no idea. I'm guessing 4.
Take control of your cloud with Dell Technologies. Accelerate time to market by up to 15%.
I've been me in this cave 100 days.
Like father, like son. Goku's kids take a lot after him, right? We mean, they should, being part Saiyan and all. But in the short time they've been alive, Gohan and Goten have done a lot. In many respects, they've surpassed Goku when he was their age. But despite their age gap, there are things the two share as well. And that is what we're discussing today. Here are some strict rules that Goku's kids must follow. Here's something Akira Toriyama literally forgot about in the franchise. The tails. It used to come up all the time in Dragon Ball, and less in the beginning of Dragon Ball Z. Goku had a tail as a kid, and Gohan had a tail as well before it was removed by Piccolo. When a Saiyan has a tail, they can transform into a great ape and wreak havoc on the populace. However, Goten, Trunks, and Pan don't have tails, so they've never transformed into great apes. Toriyama has said that he just forgot about the tails and hasn't included them in the third generation Saiyans. And it's something that Goku's kids all have in common, even with their dad. If you think about it, Vegeta's tail never grew back, but Goku's did grow back in Dragon Ball. Gohan's tail only grew back once after Piccolo removed it, so what could this mean? Well, either you only get a amount of tails as a Saiyan, or there's tail removal made Super Saiyan 2 as well, a level of power that would only be matched by Super Saiyan 3 later on in the Buu Saga. It's no question that Gohan and Goten were a lot stronger than Goku was at their age. Heck, they were even stronger than Goku when he was an adult during the first season of Dragon Ball Z. Before the advent of Super, it looked as though the reins would be passed down and Gohan and Goten were going to be stronger. However, when Super did come around, and the kids were mere side characters, Vegeta and Goku ascended to a new level. A level neither kid was going to achieve. At least yet.
Oh, here's my home.
Now, this seems like a no all of the Saiyan kids, but they're all half Saiyan. No, Goku would never cheat on Chi-Chi with another full-blood Saiyan for a variety of reasons. For one, there are no female Saiyans left in his universe, and two, Goku is a bit too dumb to know how to cheat. Not for a lack of trying, mind you. It's a small miracle Chi-Chi managed to get not just one, but two kids out of Goku. Still, with the exception of Pan, who's only a quarter Saiyan, Goten, Gohan, and Trunks are all half Saiyan. While people might think being half Saiyan would make them weaker, the weaker a Saiyan is, the stronger they become. Because of the human kindness that resides within them, Gohan, Goten, and Trunks would be able to get much stronger. Well, they would, had it not been for Super introducing Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue or whatever. We can also explain why Goku is always stronger than Vegeta. Yeah, the bar keeps rising. The kids are just getting left behind. Maybe when we get a new show like Dragon Ball Ultra or Dragon Ball Super Duper, we can revisit the idea of having Gohan or Goten become the main character. But, nah, who are we kidding? Families and clans all go by a common name, whether it's a last name or a family name. Goku's family is a bit different with all the men having the same prefix. Goku is Son Goku, then Son Gohan, and Son Goten. The three men of the Son family all have Go in their names. Aside from the beginning, Son comes from the original inspiration for Dragon Ball, Journey to the West. There, one of the main characters is named Sun Wukong, the Monkey King. So, because we had Son Goku, we had to have the rest of the kids be sons as well. So, does that make Chi-Chi's Son Chi-Chi, or did she not take his name when they got married? What's even more of a head scratcher than Bardock, Goku's father, didn't have the Son prefix either. But then again, he was introduced after Dragon Ball. And while the Son family might have similar names, it is a vast improvement from Vegeta's family line. While his son is named Trunks, Vegeta was named after his father, King Vegeta, who ruled over his home planet, named Vegeta. He was actually the fourth in the Vegeta lineage. If it hadn't been for Bulma, Trunks might have been our fifth. Saving the world can take a whole lot out of you, and to replenish your energy, you need to eat twice your weight in food because, well, why not? Goku is known for having a nearly bottomless stomach, and it's not lost on his sons. The key to getting as much food as possible in is to inhale all edible meals in sight. Both Gohan and Goten have stomachs as big as Goku's, as they can take out any fridge or restaurant that's unlucky enough to have them as customers. During the Cell Saga, Gohan and Goku trained together in the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, bonding for the first time as father and son. When they got out, the first thing they did was share a Goku-sized meal where they promptly devoured everything in sight. The World Martial Arts Tournament. Though Vegeta and Trunks gained some operations as Goku, perhaps because his ritual savories Vegeta's not proper manners. Trunks was most likely taught the same manners where Goten had to fight to get his cut during family meals. Well, at least during the short period of time Goku was alive. With appetites like that, dinner at the Son family must be its own form of World Martial Arts Tournament. When we first met Goku,
He stinks like poop. Nothing, he did it.
Goku trained
Yeah.
martial artists when their lives were interrupted by alien invaders. After all of that, with Majin Buu defeated at the very end, the Sons lived in peace and nobody bothered them. Now compare that with Gohan's life, and aside from having a childhood full of battles and being he was actually allowed to go to school and study, except during the Majin Buu saga. This continued with being invaded with Videl and having Pan. Goten was also allowed to grow up outside the family tradition of saving the world. Practically, for the most part. When Majin Buu came around, Goten had Trunks to fuse with, so he didn't have to fight alone. With each generation of fighters, it gets a little bit easier. Before Super, Goku had his family to help him in the latest season of Dragon Ball Z. You could say giving the boys the opportunity to grow up without having the world's problems on their shoulders is the gift they gave to them. This next entry has more to do with Gohan than Goten. Goku attained the perfect nuclear family with a mostly loving wife and two great sons. Gohan followed suit and met his future wife Videl just after the Cell Saga. At this point, point, Gohan is nowhere near old enough to carry on the bloodline, but Gohan has created his family when Super came around. He married Videl and had a child, Pan. With Gohan being Super Saiyan, Pan can only hope to be a quarter Saiyan when she's fully grown. But she still could be a powerful warrior. She proved herself well enough in GT, but that show isn't canon, so it doesn't count. Still, in Super, she managed to fight off the Pilaf gang before she was 1 year old, which is still more than Goku could manage when he was a child. Pan even helped her granddad become a Super Saiyan God, a legendary warrior who could only be made by linking 5 other Saiyans together. If Gohan had not continued the bloodline, Super Saiyan God wouldn't have been possible. Every kid wants to live up to their parents' expectations, and when your father happens to be the most powerful fighter in the world, those expectations can be a little high. Okay, astronomical would be a better word to describe it. Gohan certainly went through a lot of growing pains trying to attain the same level of power as his father, and for a brief moment he surpassed him when he ascended to Super Saiyan 2 and defeated Cell. It was a true moment for Gohan to live up to the name Son Gohan. Here's just a short list of things Gohan was able to do by the time he was Goku's age. Land a successful hit on Raditz, something adult Piccolo and Goku were struggling with, fight and hold his own against Frieza for a short time and help defeat the Ginyu Force, a group of elite warriors handpicked by Frieza. Similarly, Goten attained Super Saiyan well before Gohan did at his age. It's clear that greatness comes with being the child of Son Goku. Whether that's genetic or because they're so close to the main character is a mystery nobody really knows the answer to. Goku's hair is nothing if not iconic. His dad Bardock took after his own son's hair when he was written into the show. Retcons aside, Goku's kids have taken after him in this regard as well, but Gohan has had much more variety when it comes to hairstyles. In the beginning of DBZ, he sported longer black hair, which kind of looked like Goku's. Then in the Frieza saga, he had a full-on bowl cut like Mo from the Three Stooges. In the Time Chamber, he grew his hair out before Goku cut it to resemble the classic Goku look. Cell Saga, when Gohan grew up, he was sporting a shady, spiky cut that lasted well into Super. Goten, on the other hand, the image of Goku, just a mini version of him down to a T. The same look also carried well into Super. Goku seems to be alone in the similar hair department, as Vegeta's hair stands alone in his family. Literally. Well, except for his dad. Well, you can't knock a classic, and when it comes to anime protagonist hair, Goku is the look. His kids wore it well, so does he. It's no secret that Goku can kind of hog the spotlight. I mean, he's single-handedly taken down every single villain in the
I'm finally part of the Mafia family. Hope my hard work paid off. And already, the boss got a hit from me. Some carpenter keeps babbling his mouth. I gotta do it, no questions asked. Except for one, how am I gonna do it? Later, Gator, how about a good wash? Yeah, I made him look clean, capiche? Now the big boss is calling me in to report. So I better start making money for the family or I'll cease to exist? Heard you loud and clear, boss. You're gonna have so much money, you're not gonna know what to do with it. Now, where do I start?
The franchise, right? Well, not exactly single-handedly. When the pressure was really on, the boy stepped in to lend a hand and take center stage for a few fleeting moments before Goku stepped in and saved the day. Need we go on with Gohan? After Goku decided to throw the towel in against Cell, he also decided against the giant bug robot man. Nobody else could come close to beating Cell, but Gohan found a way. Finally tapping into all that power and rage, he was able to ascend to a new level and take him down for good. Before Goku could arrive, it looked like no one could stand up to Majin Buu. Gotenks, one part Zen and one part Trunks. At one point, Gotenks was the most and had to throw at Majin Buu. Say what you will about their abilities, but Gohan and Goten do step up when the big man's either dead or... No, actually, it's pretty much just when he's dead. Only death can stop Goku, and even then, it's not that effective. Despite being the daughter of the Ox King and being a pretty capable fighter herself, Chi-Chi fell into the role of the stay-at-home mom very quickly. When Gohan was born, all she wanted was for him to excel at school and to live a full and normal life. Of course, as the story goes, that isn't what Gohan got. Not in the slightest. He spent his formative years fending for himself in the wilderness, much like his dad, fighting a variety of aliens and so on. It's no wonder Gohan turned out to be the most normal out of the entire cast. Despite his bizarre adventures, Chi-Chi wanted nothing more for Gohan than to get into school and have a career. She pushed him to study on the way to Namek, dressing him world, so maybe you do need a car, but not very often. Plus, flying just looks a lot cooler. So instead, Goku will teach his kids the best thing he knows, Kamehameha. Yep, the show's signature attack that only Goku knows. Well, him, Krillin, Master Roshi, Yamcha, and Piccolo, that one time he just wanted to try it. But just like Master Roshi showed off the Kamehameha to Krillin and Goku, so too does Goku pass it down to his kids, so that perhaps one day they'll pass it on to their own. One day Gohan might teach Pan the family moves. From there, the cycle will continue. It might not be a vintage sports car, but if you had the choice between your dad's old clunker or an ultra-powerful energy